1 minute to make one introduction.
Well, good morning. Again, I'm Senator Nathan Dahm. Appreciate you all taking the time to come out here today to get informed and involved in the political process. Not enough people do that, so I appreciate you doing that. I've been a state senator now for 5 years, and as I've done that, the number one question I always get is, why do you want to be involved in public service? And now that I run for Congress, the main question I get is, why in the world do you want to go to Washington, D.C.? And for me, the answer is simple. It's what I feel called to do. And I know that it has challenges, but when you feel called to do something, that makes it a whole lot easier. As Christian businessmen and businesswomen, you all face challenges. But you know that being called to something makes it easier and makes it a whole lot more rewarding to do that. So I ask that you would join me in supporting me to be able to fulfill my call and to serve you as your next U.S. Congressman. Thank you. God bless.
My name is Kevin Hearne, and I want to read you a little quote here from Calvin Coolidge. This will resonate with you guys. The chief business of the American people is business. The government is no substitute for the freedoms of the free enterprise. My wife Tammy and I have been in business now for a number of years, 20 years in Oklahoma. We hired thousands and thousands of people, 3,500 franchisees across the United States. I served as their CFO for the last 8 years. You know, had the opportunity to work on big budgets, and we have a major problem in our country right now. The country has grown more and more corrupt, making it harder and harder for us to do business, inequitable tax policies. And I look for the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. to serve you and not go there for on-the-job training and take my experiences that I've experienced in business with the overburden of Obamacare, with tax policies, and the egregious of immigration policies. I look forward to hearing your questions today, and thank you all so much for taking your time to come today.
Hi everyone, my name is Andy Coleman and I'm running for this seat because our great country faces great challenges and we need more servant leaders to step up to the plate. I am a servant leader and my background sets me apart. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, a military veteran of Iraq. I was an intelligence officer and I've served as a lawyer, and also for the last 6 years I've been busy in the Middle East helping the persecuted church out in a very difficult season with Voice of the Martyrs, working in the world's most dangerous countries. Those that have looked at my background, vetted my conservative views, and publicly endorsed me include Dr. Everett Piper, Pam Peterson, Denny Garrison, and Morton Blackwell. I've applied oversights to everything, every station of my life. I would do the same in this role for the families, for the communities, and for the businesses of Oklahoma's 1st District. Thank you very much.
All right. My name is Danny Stockstill. Constantly I'm being asked, why in the world would you want to go to D.C. and jump in the middle of this quagmire? Since 2003, I have served as a chaplain for our Tulsa police and fire departments. Number one thing I do in that position are death notifications. I'm the guy that knocks on your door and gives you the worst news of your life, which is similar to what a politician does kind of on a daily basis. But then I stay and I help build a support system underneath that family so that they can continue on and be successful moving forward. People ask me, why do you want to be a chaplain? Why is that a volunteer service you do? Well, the answer is this: because I've got the skills necessary, I'm good at it, and we need a man of integrity and women of integrity serving in that position. I plan to take the experience I have in my small business, in 20-plus years of ministry, in the last year and a half of running my own school with my wife, to Washington, D.C. to represent the Oklahoma values so that once again, when we look at the standings, Oklahoma will be first.
I'm Tim Harris, and I want to be your next congressman. America. When you hear that word, what does that mean to you? Land of the free, home of the brave? It does in my heart. I'm running and I want to be your congressman because our America is under attack. I want to use my 28 years in public service of serving the people of Tulsa County in public safety to fight for you and to advocate for you. I'm not going to stand here this afternoon and give you empty political promises. The one promise I will abide by is I will work for you every day. I will not take you for granted, nor your vote, and I will earn your respect by the way I represent you being your voice. 3 things we have to concentrate on. Our Constitution. We have to get back to the constitutional mandate that made us the greatest country in the world. 2, safety and security. American people and Oklahomans have to be free. Thank you.
At this time, can you guys hear me? All right, fantastic. At this time, we're going to go ahead and start back here at the front with Nathan. Senator Dom, you get 2 minutes of response time for your question here, and we're going to draw it randomly. We're going to go ahead and get started. First question is, with the rise of digital currencies, what is your opinion or thoughts about proposed legislation that transforms our monetary system to being completely digital?
That's a great question. A lot of people might not be aware of Bitcoin and similar things like that, digital currencies as possibilities. If you look at where we are currently, right now, if you pull out a dollar bill out of your pocket and you read it, it's actually unconstitutional. If you read the Constitution, there are references to gold and silver backed currency. It actually says that no state shall make anything but gold or silver coin a legal tender in payment of debt. Right now, what we have in our pockets is just government promises. Who came up with the concept that paper is so valuable? We used to have an intrinsic value money supply based on gold and silver. That's what our currency was based on. And that prohibition that the founders put in there from future Congresses from being able to print up money, which they currently violate, if we had just followed that, we would not be almost $20 trillion in debt. If we were only able to spend the gold and silver that we currently have, we would not be able to put every single U.S. citizen $60,000 in debt. Regarding digital currencies, there's no prohibition for private currencies, for competing currencies. I think it's a healthy thing for individuals, for businesses to be able to keep and to compete with the government. Government shouldn't have monopolies on things because government has proven to be wholly inefficient. Government has proven to have waste, fraud, abuse, time and time again. Government should not be seen as our overlords, as knowing what is best for us. I think the private market, I think free market is the best solution. So I'm fully supportive of alternative currencies, even gold and silver based, like the Liberty Dollar that was out there, digital currencies, anything like that, that actually would have consumer confidence in it instead of just an unconstitutional government-backed promise. So I'd be fully supportive of it.
Mr. Hearne, you're up next. And again, you'll have 2 minutes to respond. And then as a reminder to all of you, if we have a question that one candidate gets, you can respond to that as long as you've answered the original question. Question is, are some private institutions too big to fail? And would you support the idea of the government bailing out massive corporations?
You know, actually, there's nobody too big to fail. If you look at what happened with TARP, that was the government's interjection into the banking society to try the financial institutions to try to fix that so that we'd all have a proper way to have our mortgages guaranteed, our finances guaranteed. And so this thing called Dodd-Frank was introduced, which has been devastating to small businesses and the ability to get capital. Small banking has been devastating. Yes, it created jobs. It tripled the size of compliance officers that we have in banks. I'm involved in a bank. I've been involved in a bank since 2001. I sit on an executive board. I get it. I saw that what had happened to you if you're trying to get a mortgage. It basically at least doubled the period of time. Just recently, there's been a document that's been introduced as a too big to fail document. We want to know the government wants to know everything about you. They're actually imposing it on the banks to impose on you. To know, before there were about 15 pages or 15 questions we had to ask of you to get a mortgage. Today it's about 134 questions we have to know about you before you can get a mortgage. So these things continue to trickle down. It's one more big business for the American government, and it's a problem. If you go all the way back, you know, this whole notion of too big to fail actually started back in Massachusetts with the cod industry. If you want to know where it started at, that's how far back this goes. This whole idea, and it's been debated for years, whether the federal government should step in and take care of an industry that might actually collapse, because it was so important to all the states at that time, and shipbuilding and all the things around that. So if you start looking at the institutions, we're protecting people that they should act in a free market society. The whole purpose of that was to interject regulations that violated, in my opinion, the ability for somebody to take a risk and fail, like you all do every day. And so the government all of a sudden now has extended that down and continues to extend down the regulations on all of us as individual business owners to tell us they know more about our business than we do. So again, I am not supportive of it at all.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Coleman, you're up next. You'll have 2 minutes to respond. Your question is, do you believe the federal government should mandate a minimum wage for the workforce? Please give reasons why you do or don't support it.
I'm going to say no, I do not. I think that this is something that is best left to the free markets. Those fluctuating rates are going to be best. They're going to be the best price point to get the employment that you want at the level that you want. One of the things that I don't see enough talk of is unintended consequences, your second and third order effects. If you start mandating minimum wages, especially at the federal government, and you're trying to apply a one-size-fits-all solution to 50 states, problems arise. All of a sudden, companies, businesses cannot hire the people that they want at the price that they want. People actually lose jobs. They cannot get in there. They can't support their families. And it's a mistake to pretend that all jobs are supposedly careers. There are entry-level jobs. There's jobs for college students. There's jobs that we want young people to take on and not necessarily support their family with. So I just think that when we look at these things, we have to be smart. We have to poke our noses around corners and think of those unintended consequences, because they really they do come into bear. I think that as we look at the federal structure of our Constitution, of our structure of government, the beauty is in some of that diversity, in the fact that states can determine for their own what's best, what's not. We really should hedge away from the one-size-fits-all solutions that's tempting to do in D.C. But as a representative, I would love to go up there to represent the families here and to be the best advocates, the champions for Tulsa business, but in some sense to also be a blast shield when the government wants to overreach and extend its power inappropriately, contrary to the U.S. Constitution.
Okay. Mr. Stockstill, your question is, and you'll have 2 minutes to respond. Other than the First or Second Amendment, which is your favorite amendment in the U.S. Constitution and why?
Why not the first or second?
Well,
I'm just kidding. You know, the Constitution is one of the greatest documents outside of the Bible. I've spent the last 20 years trying to interpret the Bible to congregations, to students, to ministries, and so now the past year and a half as I've been studying and learning the Constitution, I'm just as enthralled with that. Truthfully, I love all 10 of the Bill of Rights. I think as the Constitution was lined out, giving the government the guidelines in which it should run, those first 10 amendments come in and says, this is how we're going to begin limiting government. So the first one limits the power or the thought process or how the government controls the thoughts of the people. The Second Amendment was designed so that the government will never, ever be able to overrun the states or the people. And so the right to bear arms is just that. And as you begin walking through the rest of the amendments, the Fifth Amendment protects us and our individual liberties when it comes to law and order. The Sixth Amendment jumps in. I don't remember what the Sixth Amendment is. There you go, rights of the court. Thank you, Dr. Harris. And so the rights of the court, which again limits the way the government judges us. And then you get to the Ninth and 10th Amendments, which is really the ones people ask me about the most. And that's about limiting and allowing the states to do those things that the states do. I think the states should be free to run as states. I hope that Oklahoma never, ever looks like California. I hope that Oklahoma never, ever looks like New York, because we were brought up differently. We've got a different history. We've got a different heritage. And so both 9th and 10th, I think, help define and allow the states to define who they are.
Thank you. All right. All right. Mr. Harris, this is your question. You'll have 2 minutes to respond. If I can get them untangled. There we go. If you had the chance, would you vote yes for a full audit of the Federal Reserve banking system?
Wow, that's a great question because right now we're in a financial crisis. $20 trillion in debt, and I kind of look at that, it's almost impossible to get your arms around that. I know we have a gubernatorial candidate that is talking about audits. It's expensive to do an audit, but you know what? If you don't know how you're spending your money, how can you have a budget? We all have to have a budget in our homes to pay our bills, to pay our rent, to pay our mortgage, keep the lights on, and put food on the table. An audit of the Federal Reserve tells us exactly where we would be at, and hearkening back, the gold standard. We don't have enough gold to support all the paper money that's out there, nor do we have the combination of enough gold and silver to support our dollars. So what are we going to do? We're just going to crank out the Treasury and turn out more and more Benjamins, and we're going to flood the market? Well, we know what's going to happen with that in the end. At some point in time, you have to pay the piper. And so an audit is a very good idea, and not only for the Federal Reserve. We are spending money in places. I remember Tom Coleman, he used to do his list every year about how we are wasting money in the federal government. Don't forget this, the federal government has no money except for the money you give them. Okay? And so when we're looking at that, we have to get back within a budgetary scheme where we're not spending more than we bring in. Thank you.